Hey guys, Darren Carr, coach of Wise Action Pods, and welcome back to the final episode of Captains for 2025. Congratulations if you're watching this video. If you made it this far, then you are a real fantasy freak like myself. You absolutely love it. So, this is the final week of fantasy for 2024. I know it's been a long time coming, but yeah, it just feels unreal to me. But we have some very important matchups coming up this weekend, whether you're playing in a grand final for your league matchups or you're playing for ranking. Captains are going to be a huge deciding factor this week. As we saw last week, a captain can be the difference between a 130 and a 180, which means about 60 points, if not even more than that. So it can be a huge difference. So you want to nail your captain selection this week if you can. So without all that being said, let's get into my captain's picks. So before that, obviously I got to show you how I went last week. Had a pretty solid week, 41st in the weekly rankings with a 19-13. Pretty happy with that. Huge shout out to Harry Sheasel. He was the main one that got me over the line there with a very, very decent score. Would have been nicer to have Wang as a much better in a lower position. Obviously, had a higher score there. Would have gotten me in a much better position to attack this week. But yeah, ultimately very happy with how it went. But it wasn't enough because one of my competitors that are up the top had an extremely good week in Visolate. I do apologize if I've pronounced that wrong. He had a massive week with a 2026. Obviously had Roll Marshall there, Bond, Harry Sheasel at number 3, and just ultimately had a fantastic week in the rankings this week, and that means he's in a prime spot for overall rankings. He is over 250 points clear of number 2 at this stage, and good 330 points over me. So, not sure I can break that difference this week, but I'll definitely give it a try. So, some of my selections are a bit left field just to see if I can make up that difference because I want to go for number 1. There's no point me playing it safe. Might as well go. Even there's no prizes, I just want that title. So happy where I am at number 4, but hoping I can continue to push up this week. So with all that said and done, let's see what my selections are going to be this week. Don't mind this. I unfortunately or accidentally put in my selections earlier, and there's no way to clear it without having them pop up at some other stage. So Paddy Cripps is definitely not my number 1 pick, but I could see him going well tonight. But my number 1 selection this week is probably not someone that is getting hugely mentioned, just with his poorer performance in recent times. Sorry, in his last game against them, but he has been one of the best players in the most recent times, with a average of 133 in his last 3. It is Rowan Marshall up against Briggs. He is going to have a field day, I reckon. We saw Witts have 50 hitouts against Briggs last weekend, and he obviously put up a decent score, and a decent score for Witts is a ton. So I'm expecting Royal Marshall to even hit a 130 in this. We have seen the likes of Tim English and Brody Grundy both go 129 and 130 previously. Witts before that went 138 as well. So I think this is a prime matchup for Royal Marshall. He's just going to be grabbing it out of the ruck as much as possible, putting it on the boot and getting those +3s and hopefully a few tackles and marks along the way. He did however have the 70 early in the season. I think it was round 4 or something like that, where he was injured and didn't play a huge amount of the game. But previous to that, he had two 138s against Briggs in the 2 previous years, and even before that was a 110. So he loves the Briggs matchup, and he does play well against him. So I could definitely see Rowan Marshall going quite well, and I think he's a very safe sort of 120, 130 walk up, as he has been for the last 3 weeks. And just want that nice, safe captain option at number 1. I think he can get it done. Obviously, I said he's gone 133 over his last 3 matchups with a score of 142, 135, and 121 as well. So I expect him to continue that trend and should be a nice, safe 120 there. Number 2, I have gone for a massive ceiling, and that is Jeremy Cameron. I really like what he can propose this week. Obviously, he's scored the 117 last time he came up against Richmond early in the year. He had 11 marks and only kicked 4 goals in that matchup. So we're seeing a lot of these big markers against Richmond are doing extremely well. You know, if I just go through the forwards, Thilthorpe with a 107. So again, big marker. Darcy Cameron, not Darcy Cameron. Sam Darcy is his name. He went 114. Even like the Ethan Reed and Sharman both hit 90s. So these guys that are capable of taking a mark in the forward 50 are just going to absolutely rack up. I think Jeremy Cameron's going to get a lot of the pill because, again, he's going for the 100. He's 21 off it. He's going to need a big day to be able to get it done in finals. With no Shannon Neal as well, so he's going to be the prime target up forward. I really like what he's going to be able to do. This could be a 150 on the cards. Could have been my number one, but I also think Royal Marshall is a safer option there at this stage, so I like that. Obviously, he's going to be super hungry off of having 0 goals last weekend as well. I think he'll get up there. Wide open ground at the MCG. Can get +6s around the ground, as we have seen in the past as well. So I really like Jeremy Cameron this week, and I think it's a lot of fun going with him as the VC option this weekend. He does play Saturday afternoon, 3:45 for me. So I think it's a decent option, and you do have some very good options later down the track, like a Rowan Marshall. That's probably what I'll be doing. VC Jeremy Cameron into the likes of Rowan Marshall. If not, you could even go into a Heaney or Gordon, who we'll discuss very, very shortly. Number 3, though, is probably the most selected captain in Bailey Smith. I just don't see a world where he isn't going sort of 120 this week. The only thing that could potentially stop him is how much rest time does he get. With it being a very easy matchup for Geelong heading into finals, I can very easily see Bailey Smith getting a fair bit of rest time. So he may spend only 70% time on ground, but I think even 70% time on ground, he can hit a 120 quite possibly. We obviously seen Sheasel go 186 last week against Richmond. So we know Bailey Smith has a very similar ball magnet ability. So this could be anything. It could be another record-breaking disposal. But again, I just don't know. With him getting rested and with Geelong, they could easily do that. So I just don't. I haven't selected him as high as some other people at this stage. But he did not play earlier in the season. He was that late out against Richmond back in round 17. So we don't have any sort of data for him against Richmond at this stage, but he is averaging 118 across his 4 matches at the MCG so far this season, and has been putting up some very, very nice scores against the easier opponents. So you're talking your Essendons, your Norths, your West Coasts, and these are some of the scores that he has put up against them. 132, 120, 136, 147, and 126. So this, again, should be a nice, easy walk-up for a 120, as long as he does not get rested. So that for that reason, he is further down my list, but I still think he's a great, safe option that you can go with. But for me, for someone that is lower, so not further back in the rankings, that isn't fighting for anything besides pride, he's a very nice safe option if you are in the top 100 and you just want to play defense. Otherwise, Jeremy Cameron definitely more of a fun, high ceiling play that you can go with this week. Number 4, I've gone with another very high ceiling player that does play West Coast, and that is Isaac Heaney. We have seen him go absolute berserk against these lower teams. You only have to look, 5 or 6 weeks ago when he went up against North Melbourne. He had that massive 166 where he had like 34 touches and 5 goals. Could easily see that happening in this matchup as well against West Coast. He went 108 against them previously and has had a pretty good history against West Coast in the past with 3 scores of 108, 129, and 103. So it should be a pretty safe 100. Obviously, it's sort of a dead rubber game, as I mentioned. Sydney are not playing for anything anymore. They're going to finish 10th at this stage. So they miles off finish on a high, and a pretty big high to really get themselves motivated for 2026. So I think they're going to go out big, and they're going to absolutely rack it up in this game to really celebrate all the players, get their fans up, say goodbye to their fans for the season, and they're going to go absolutely massive. So I really like what Isaac Heaney could do this week. And just some of the scores that we've seen against West Coast in previous times. Bont last week, 131. Jordan Dawson with a 147 the week before that. We saw Bailey Smith, 147 against them the week before that. So they are no stranger to giving up some massive, massive scores to the main inside mids, which will be your Isaac Heaney's, your Chad Warners and stuff like that. But definitely feel a lot more comfortable with Isaac Heaney with this prospect to be able to go forward, take lots of marks, kick some goals, and do all that sort of stuff. So I really like him. Could have been up higher in the list. I don't see he won't be rested as the other factor. Obviously, last game of the round, there's no risk of being rested. So I really like him as a great option. Then to round out my top 5, I have got his teammate in Brodie Grundy as a bit of a safety option. Now, this does sort of have some caveat around it. If Adams is named, he will drop out and I will slot in someone else. Not quite sure who that is going to be just yet. The next 6 to 10 is a bit of a hard to sort of tell, in my opinion, at this stage. So, but Brodie Grundy, I think, is going to be a great option. Obviously, back off that concussion against West Coast. West Coast have been a really good matchup for Ruckman for some time. Obviously, with Flynn back as well, that makes it even better. So he theoretically could be up high up this list, but off concussion could be a little bit unknown with how he's going to go. But he went 93 against them earlier. Sorry, last season. Hasn't played them this season is the only thing that sucks about the data. But he has been the best player in the second half of the season. There's no doubt he's just gone absolutely berserk. He's gone 123 in his last 5 matches before his concussion with some massive scores that we know of. So, but when we're looking at the matchup, we've seen just English go 129 against them last week. So really good result. I think Brodie Grundy can definitely get to that sort of heights. Gorn went with a 113 previous to that, and also Nanka's gone 110. So not the massive scores that you want to be seeing, but some of those are mixed in with Bailey Williams as solo ruck, whereas some of them are with Flynn, which we want Flynn in this matchup because he's a much easier ruckman to get the ball. So again, I think they're going to celebrate. I think Brodie Grundy's going to finish the year strong. He is fighting for the AA squad, if not in the team. So I think he's going to finish strong in this game. So that is my top 5 at this stage. A little bit left field here and there just to try and make some differences. I did consider not posting this to try and keep it a bit more of a secret, but yeah, we'll just roll with it, see what happens. Yeah. But my 6 to 10, I'll just clarify on a few of those as well. So Jordan Dawson did slot in at number 6 for me. He's obviously up against North. Again, I'm just concerned with the chance that they rest him. I know Rankin's not playing and all that sort of works, but he only went 85 against them earlier in the year, round 3. Back when he was absolutely dominating, just didn't have the best score. I don't think he copped any attention. Just, yeah, didn't really get up for it. And that's what we typically see from Jordan Dawson. He doesn't always need to be the main disposal getter in the team, which is, it's a bit hit and miss sometimes with the captaincy. But before that, he did have a 122, a 136, a 129, and a 120 against North, so he does love the matchup. Obviously, that's a mixture of midfield and halfback as he's changed throughout the role, but he just gets the job done. North are a very good matchup for these sort of players, and if he can produce anything like Isaac Heaney did back 6 weeks ago, then he could have an absolute ceiling. But again, I've put him down the list just a little bit just because of the rest factor. Going to be minor premiers as long as they pull off the win. And yeah, they want to be fit and primed, ready to go for finals. So I can easily see him spending a fair bit of time on the bench. So that is number 6. Number 7, I did have Errol Goulden, the guy that I'm trading in at this stage. Hasn't been in the greatest form, I know that, with only 96 average over his last 5. But he has gone 127 last time he played against them, and even a 145 in the year prior to that as well. So he does love this matchup. And again, they're going to celebrate the players. It's going to be a dead rubber game. It's going to be pretty fruitful, in my opinion, over there in the West. Wide open stadium, which means more and more +6s for Errol Goulden out there on the wing. The only reason he's probably a little bit further down in this list is just the fact that it may not spend a huge amount of time out on the wings. It could just go straight from the midfield, straight into the forward line, and that's about it. So that's why Errol Goulden is a little bit further down, but I still think he's a great option as a bit of a safety captain later on in the week. Number 8, I did have Nick Dacos. I think he could be great, but I also think he could be absolutely dog shit this week. He got an 83 earlier in the season when he was tagged by Ed Langdon. There's no guarantee that's not going to happen again this week, so that's enough for me to scare him out of my top 5. But previous to that, he did have a 157 back in round 24 of last season, so he can absolutely go massive in this matchup if he is playing right, but he is still struggling with that hip injury. We saw him start on the bench only 2 weeks ago, and even against Adelaide, he wasn't amazing. So he is not in the prime Nick Dacos form that we are used to him being in. So it would be some sort of miracle for him to turn that around so quickly and get over the hip injury. They should get over Melbourne quite comfortably and secure the finals. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if they rest him if they have got the game in hand quite comfortably. So just something to be aware of. I'm not looking at the VC there, even though he does play on the Friday night, the first game, so second game on the round. And again, we just haven't seen the matchup isn't that great against Melbourne. They have been a bit of a tougher one. The only significant scores of recent times has been a Libba and a Bont with a both 120 and a 125. So nothing significant other than that. So just a note on Nick Dacos for me. Lockie Whitfield slotted in at number 9. I think he could be absolutely anything in this matchup just because Giants could and should have this in the bag quite comfortably, and I could see them playing a lot of bruise-free footy and kicking the ball around halfback for a lot of the matchup. And St Kilda are a really fruitful matchup for designated kick-up players and halfback players. Just some of the scores. Redmond went 143 last weekend. The week prior to that, McKercher and Caleb Daniel both went 115 plus. Dale went 127 and Clark at 122 in matchups previous to that as well. So very, very good matchup. Very, very good player off halfback. But in his career, it is his second worst team to score against in his career. So he only averages 84 against them, which is very, very unusual. I dare say he's probably copped a fair bit of attention throughout that period. And that's maybe the other flag is, does someone spend a bit of time on him in this matchup to stop him getting these big ceiling scores? So that's why he's a bit further down. Then rounding out my 10, I have just gone with the safety of Max Holmes. Again, he could be absolutely anything. Same with Smith. You probably could argue that Holmes is a similar type to Harry Sheezer, where he does go into the halfback a fair bit, get those +6s on the outside, and does some of the inside work as well. So he could be absolutely anything, but his form just hasn't been there recently. He's hit a lot of 80s, and I just do not want an 80 in my top 5 this week, so I've gone with a few safer players with a higher ceiling. That's why he's down here. But he did go 122 against them earlier in the year. The only other thing that I had there as well was that he's only hit 1 ton at the MCG this year across 4 of his matches. So doesn't absolutely love the MCG so far, but definitely could turn that around this weekend with a very fruitful matchup. So that is my top 10. A few others that I didn't mention. Obviously, Bont could be anything as well, up against the Fremantle Dockers in what is a final deciding game. Obviously, whoever wins plays, whoever doesn't pretty much falls out at this stage. So he needs to stand up for his club. So I definitely could see him going quite well. Messiah, I think he could cop some attention in a tougher matchup. I just wouldn't be looking at there as good as he has been going. He has been a little disappointing in the last couple of weeks in what has been a much better matchups. Harry Sheezer off the back of that 186. Again, Adelaide's a much tougher opponent. I'm not expecting to see that again. And has he put a bit of a target on the back of his head with that performance? Quite possibly. So not going there this week for me. Not going near Anderson, just with the possibility that poor tag. We've seen the tag come out previously against Noah Anderson against Andy Brayshaw and Caleb Sarong. So they have that in their arsenal to go shut down Anderson at any point, and we know Anderson doesn't cope well with the tag throughout this season. He drops 70s very, very easily. Max Gawn could be pretty good against Darcy Cameron. He did put up a 122 against him earlier this season, and he does actually like the Collingwood matchup throughout his season. Throughout his career, he's put up 4 140s against them since 2016. Obviously, that's a mixture of ruckman, back when it was Brodie Grundy, back in those days, even obviously Darcy Cameron now. and mixture of Mason Cox as well. So he definitely could get the job done, but I just like to focus on the better matchups for now rather than just go based off form previously to that. The only other one I really wanted to mention, obviously Hewitt Butters could also go massive, not going near Cherry again the toughest matchup for Ruckman. I like Merritt as well if you have him as a unique. He could be a possible VC option tonight if you're wanting to be a bit spicy. He is the final week specialist, final round specialist is what I like to call him. He has gone 149, 146, and 125 in the last 3 years of the final weeks. And that's not against shit opponents either. That's against Collingwood, Brisbane, and one other one I can't remember right now, but really good opponents that have gone on to win the premiership that year. So we always typically see him going to the halfback in this last round. So I would not be surprised to see him off there this week, tonight, and absolutely go ballistic. So keep an eye on that one tonight if you have him. I think you're in for a bit of a treat. So, but that is my captains this week, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed this series throughout the year. We've had a pretty phenomenal year for captains, I must say. To be averaging, I can't even say, 117 from my number one captains this year is pretty phenomenal. I haven't actually looked at what my captains myself has been averaging, but I've had a pretty good season, and it's definitely one of my stronger suits that have got me over the line in the past. But yeah, hopefully this series has given you some advice throughout the year and has got you in a good position. This is the last time you'll be hearing from me for this weekend. I will obviously do a bit of a recap of the year next weekend. Next week. Which will be a bit of a longer one, just really summarizing my year and a lot of the year in summer, and then we'll do a bit of a preview of what's to come for the channel, and obviously looking ahead into next year as well. If you're keen to talk about next year already, like myself, but yeah, hopefully you go well in your matchups this weekend if you're in a grand final or playing for rankings. Again, please leave a like, subscribe, do all that sort of great stuff. I do really appreciate everything that you guys support the channel, obviously. So yeah, it's been a phenomenal year, and I just want to say thank you. So have a great weekend, guys. I will catch you next weekend. Sorry, next week. My God. Cheers, guys.